Recording in progress. Good morning, everybody, and you're all very welcome to this morning's Scottsdale Big Book study, where we will study the Big Book of Alcoholics Anonymous. Today's date is the 17th of August, 2024. My name is Audrey N, and I'm a recovered compulsive overeater from County Meath in Ireland, and I will be your host for today's study. The co-host is Ennis, and our Q&A will be Tanya G. If you have any questions during the meeting, please contact either myself or any of the co-hosts by private message in the chat function. The chat function will also be disabled until 5 minutes before the questions and answer session. Please note that Harlan G will be recorded for the duration of the study. However, the Q&A sessions which follows will not be recorded. We ask if you can please make sure to keep your microphone on mute at all times during today's study, and also please turn off your video if you are exercising, eating, or if you need to step away from your screen for any reason. During the meeting, we will also post the link to the 7 Tradition. This money goes towards the cost of our Zoom account and the cost of uploading our recordings. We also send contributions to Intergroup and the World Service Organization. We will post a link to the previous week's recording, and these are available by clicking on the link, and it will be posted in the chat box. And you're all very welcome, and I'll now hand you over to Harlan G. Thanks, Harlan.
Thank you very much, Audrey. I really appreciate your service today, and thank you all for coming. We are in the chapter How It Works, and we are more specifically in step 3, which is one of the 2 most misunderstood steps. There are people that are writing compositions and they're writing all kinds of essays on turning your will and life over to God. And that's, you don't turn anything over to anybody in step 3, nothing. All you're doing in step 3 is you're making a decision to do what? To turn your will and life over to God. God, how do you do that specifically? By doing the rest of the steps. That's all it is, as simplified as possible, as easy as is possible. You do this by doing the rest of the steps. How do I know you've taken step 3? You've got a notebook and a pencil in your hand, and you're doing step 4. You're moving on with the steps. And in the chapter, the concept, the word honesty, in the first paragraph, it has 3 mentions: honest, honesty, and honest. And then in the bottom at the other paragraph, sorry, the one that starts with, at some of these we balked, the word earnestness is mentioned, and earnestness means honesty. Honesty about what? Now, the easy answer is everything. We must be honest about everything. And that's a good answer. That's a great answer. But the bottom line is, without this answer, we're in trouble. The answer is honest about our condition. Because if we don't accept step 1, that we are physically and mentally different from our fellows, we have an allergy of the body and a twist of the mind. The twist of the mind drives us irresistibly into the food in search of relief from the untenable pain of not eating, that the ennui, the emotional tumult of not eating is too much for us, and we eat. We cave in time after time after time after time, and we wonder what's wrong with us. Well, there's nothing wrong. We have an illness, that's all. And we also have a physical allergy. And it says on page 60, it says our description of the alcoholic. That's the doctor's opinion. And chapters 1, 2, and 3, the doctor's opinion, Bill's story, there is a solution, and more about alcoholism is step 1. And then it says here that probably no human power could have relieved our alcoholism. So in chapter 4, we agnostics, we're asked a question: do you believe or are you willing to believe that there is a power greater than yourself? You don't have to have this perfect understanding of God. You don't have to have this. You don't have to become a theologian. You don't have to become a philosopher. You don't have to have an understanding of why certain babies get sick and certain other ones don't. You don't have to even, whatever, know any of that stuff. All you have to be willing to do is accept that there is a power greater than yourself. That is step 2. You don't have to become a theologian. You don't have to do any of that. You don't have to have this vast understanding of God. None of that is required to work step number 2. And then it says that God could and would if he were sought. Do I have a God in my head that's going to help me? If I don't, it is incumbent upon me to change that idea of God. I don't have a God in my heart today that's not going to help me. I don't have a God in my heart today that's not going to look over me and look after me. I don't have that God in my heart. I've changed that God because I always knew there was a God. I just thought he was out to get me. He made me fat. He didn't make me good looking. He didn't make me sexy. He didn't make me smart enough. He didn't make me rich enough. And so I thought he was just out to get me. And now I have a God in my heart and a God in my head that really provides a wonderful life for me. My life works on so many levels. Like anyone, there are things about my life I wish were different, but I have a house. My house is paid up, not paid for, but paid up. My car, I paid cash for my car. My taxes are paid. I don't have any debt. I have a fabulous girlfriend. I have a romantic life. I have a life that includes friends. I have a life that includes OA people. I have a life that includes non-OA people. I have a good life. And for a 70-year-old that used to weigh over 700 pounds, I am very healthy. I walk 3 miles a day, 6 days a week. I go to the pool. I function. I can get in and out of a car. I can stand on my feet for a short period of time, not forever, but a short period of time. And I have a life that works. My cardiac tests are good. My blood tests are good. I mean, I am relatively healthy, especially when you factor in I'm 70 years old. And although I'm not quite sure I do, but I think I have all my marbles. Maybe I'm wrong. I don't know, but I think I have all my marbles. So for a guy that's 70 years old, I could be doing a heck of a lot worse, a heck of a lot worse. So do I believe that there is a power greater than myself? You bet that I do. What I call that God or how I perceive that God is probably different than the way you do, but that's okay. Your conception of God does not have to match or get the approval of my conception of God. It doesn't have to. All you have to do to work step 2 is to come to this conclusion. I am not the be all and the end all of the world. Do I believe or am I willing to believe that there is a power greater than myself? You work on step 2 every day for the rest of your life. What does it say in the book? It says, the main object of this book is to help you find a power greater than yourself, which will solve your problem. And if that's the main object of this book, it damn well better be the main object of my life. So once again, not to seem redundant, but I am going to repeat this because sometimes there's people here today that may not have been here the last couple of weeks. I am saying to you, abstinence is not the most important thing in my life without exception. Now, please do not call me later. Please do not misunderstand me. And don't say Harlan said abstinence is not important. I never said that. What I'm saying is it's not the most important thing in my life without exception, because the pursuance of a closer relationship with my higher power is the most important thing in my life without exception. And I work on that every day for the rest of my life. My life is dedicated to get closer to God today than I was yesterday, and closer still tomorrow. Okay, so abstinence is very important. It's the entrance ramp to the highway. Without the entrance ramp, I can't get on the highway. Once I'm on the highway, abstinence is still important. It's vital, but without my relationship with a higher power, I cannot progress in life or in program. I'm getting in touch with things every day about myself that I didn't know, and I'm working on them. I'm working on them in OA. I'm working on them in therapy. I'm working on them by praying. I'm working on them in various different ways because I get in touch with concepts about me and about my relationship to others in the world that teach me new vistas of work that needs to be done. I don't want to have to keep doing more and more work. And that's what chases a lot of people out. The accountability in OA is more stringent and deeper than the accountability in any other 12-step program with which I am familiar. In no other 12-step program do you have anything comparing to the accountability here. AAs can eat what they want. Al-Anons can eat what they want. They can have a drink once in a while. They can smoke a joint once in a while, whatever that may be. OAs don't have that kind of leeway. OAs have an accountability of an ever-changing, ever metamorphosizing food plan, because I've got a little bad news for some of you younger folks. Once you get older, you get less food. I don't want to scare you away. Don't leave me. But once you get older, your body does not need the volume of food that it needed years ago, because your furnace, your metabolism, your plant and equipment becomes less efficient as time goes on. And so what an 18-year-old can eat is different from what a 35-year-old can eat. What a 35-year-old can eat is very different from what a 50-year-old can eat. You get the picture? I'm 70. If I went back to eating the volume of food, forget sugar, forget all that crap. Forget that. I'm not talking about Reese's peanut butter cups or Chips Ahoy. I'm not talking about that. I'm just talking about the volume of food. If I went back and ate the volume of food that I was eating when I was 65 years old, 5 years ago, I would gain weight in leaps and bounds. I would gain weight in leaps and bounds. So the accountability in OA is very, very different than the accountability in other 12-step programs. Why is it that way? It's because of the nature of the addiction, not because of OA as a body or as a governing, as a program. I'm sorry, the people that run it. But that's not why. And it's not because of our literature. It's because of biology. And biology says that as you age, you eat less foods. And foods that work for you at 40, foods that work for you at 60 will not work for you as time goes on. And so the ever-changing food plan makes the accountability here very different from other programs. Okay, let's move forward. We started to talk about the character defect of selfishness. And, we have a concept of selfishness. And let's just say we were stranded on a desert island somewhere, Gilligan's Island. Let's call it Gilligan's Island. And we're on Gilligan's Island, and I'm on Gilligan's Island, and they drop supplies down to us on the island, and I hog all the supplies for myself. One of you would say, "Hey, Harlan, you're being very selfish." And you'd be right. That is a definition of selfishness, is to consider myself first and foremost in things. Okay, that is a definition of selfishness. However, see, you knew there was a however in there. However, there is another definition of selfishness that we have to consider here because it's the one that's most germane to what we're talking about. Selfishness is equal to script. In other words, I have a script in my head. And the script in my head says, when I'm 25, I'm going to do this, and I'm going to get married, and I'm going to go here, and I'm going to be rich, and I'm going to drive a Rolls Royce. Well, that script is out the window. We've tossed that aside already. But I want everybody to stick to my script. See, I'm the world-renowned authority on everything. And if you'll just listen to me and stick to my script and do what I want you to do, not only is my life going to be better, but I'm so smart, I'm so wonderful that your life is going to be better too. You want to know who to marry? Just ask me, I'll tell you. You want to know what job to have? You want to know what pet to have? You want to know whether you should go east or west or north or south? Just ask me, because I'm the world-renowned authority on everything. Well, here's a flash. No, I'm not. No, I'm not. I have a daughter. She's going to be 30 in December. And I had a script for my daughter. Well, she thumbed her nose, not just her nose, but she put up one of her, other digits, but she had another script for her life. And she said, no, I'm sorry. I want to go in here, and I want to live in New York, and I want to marry this guy, and I want to have 2 children so far. And I want to live on this street and drive this kind of car. Well, she had a script of her own. Guess what? When it came down to it, her script was the one she's following, not my script, not my script. So we all have an idea that we know what's best for another person, and we don't. But that script is equivalent to selfishness. Now, one of the most frequently asked questions in OA, the most important or the most asked question is, can I be heard? Am I be heard? Can I be heard? May I be heard? That's the most asked question of anything or anybody in OA. And you hear it on Vision 82 times a day. Hi, can I be heard? May I be heard? Can I be heard? May I be heard? Most people start their share with that inquisitor. Okay, now, the second most asked question is, what's the difference between recovering and recovered? Recovering is you're working toward a spiritual awakening. Recovered is you've had one. What's the third most asked question is, what is the difference between selfishness and self-seeking? Selfishness is the script. Self-seeking is the manipulation. You may want to write that down. Manipulation that you use to get people to stick to your script. In other words, self-seeking is the action that I take to get people to live in my world, in my script. I may be nice to them. I may be a jerk to them. I may be overly whatever to them, but I am manipulating them. What is the difference between manipulating and helping? Manipulating is I'm helping you, but there are strings attached. Helping is I'm helping you for the sake of doing service with no strings attached. That's the difference. If I'm going to help you, and I have many people in my life that will help you, thank God. Thank God. Most of my friends, although one in particular comes to mind, he's never helped anybody without a bill to be presented at the end. But most of my friends will help me at different times with many, many things, and I will never, ever, ever hear about it again in life. Never. They are just not built that way, thank God. And that's not why, but that's one of the reasons I love them. I love them. I could never, ever do for my girlfriend what she has done for me. Ever. There's no way I could ever repay her for her kindnesses and the love that she has shown me. There's just no way I could do that. Well, anyway, so we're going to get into self-seeking today. We're on page 61. We're on page 61, and it starts with what usually happens. Okay. What usually happens. So now we are going to define self-seeking. Let's go for it. Page 61. What usually happens? The show doesn't come off very well. He begins to think life doesn't treat him right. See, we're getting into self-pity now. He decides to exert himself more. See, I want you to stick to my script, and what I've been doing so far ain't working. So I need to get a new plan of attack. He becomes on the next occasion still more demanding or gracious, as the case may be. See, we think of manipulation often as being mean or heavy-handed. No, it doesn't have to be. It doesn't have to be at all. And if you look at life, a lot of times it's with kindness that people are manipulating. So you have to know, again, is the person giving of themselves with no strings attached, or are they giving with strings attached? The strings attached is self-seeking. It is manipulation. Okay, something comes to my mind every time I talk about this paragraph, and it's the movie called Terms of Endearment. Terms of Endearment, that movie, where the mother is helping the daughter supposedly, but every time she does, she wants the daughter to do this instead of that, or that instead of this. And so there's always that manipulation kind of going back and forth. If you've never seen the movie, it's a good one. Okay. Still, the play does not suit him, admitting he may be somewhat at fault. He is sure that other people are more to blame. What are the four things that all addicted people do? They lie to themselves and others. They assign blame. They keep score in their relationships, and they fight battles that just don't exist. They lie, they assign blame, they keep score, and they fight battles that just don't exist. And we exhaust ourselves in these endeavors. You know, for this is election time here in America. I know some of you are not in America, but you've got to be aware that we're having our elections now. And you've got people, they're donning their armor and they're mounting their steed, and they are out there with their lance, and they're going to fight the Democrats, or they're going to fight the Republicans. And what's going to happen is they're going to get hurt or killed over this, and the people that are running for office don't even know their names. Don't even know their names. Couldn't care less whether they lived or died. Unless it benefited them, they couldn't care less whether this person lives or dies. I was watching yesterday, quote unquote, news, which I almost want to laugh at the word news. It's anything but news. It's pure manipulation. It's pure propaganda. And I just said to my girlfriend, I'm sick of this. I can't do this anymore. I get it. This person's bad. This person's good. This person should be elected. This person shouldn't be elected. You know, I've had an overload of it, and it's only August. So if I jump out the window at some point, just be grateful that I live in a house that's low to the ground. So the bottom line is I've had my fill of it. Good gravy. I've had my fill of this political crapola. Okay, so anyway, let's continue. He becomes angry, indignant, self-pitying. What is his basic trouble? Is he not really a self-seeker? Even when trying to be kind? See, we can manipulate with kindness. We can manipulate with not kindness. There's various forms of manipulation. Is he not a victim of the delusion? What is a delusion? Something that appears real, but is not. Remember, we talked about delusion and illusion in chapter 3, more about alcoholism. We suffer from a delusion that we can, eat like other people, or that we can control and enjoy our eating simultaneously, which I can't. I don't know if you can. I sure as heck can't. But the bottom line is we are victims of a delusion that he can wrest satisfaction and happiness out of this world if he only manages well. In other words, if I'm on my game, everybody is supposed to do what I want them to do. Now, most of it comes from ego. Most of it comes from the part of me that is very egotistical, that thinks I have all the answers. Most of it comes from that idea that says I'm smart and you should all listen to me. But some of it comes from this lie that was told to me. I don't know if it was told to you. If you were a fat kid, maybe it was. Here was the lie that I was told. The lie is just lose weight and everything will be okay. Everything will be okay. What was the name of that girl? I forgot the name of her. She was a famous actress or something, whatever it is, doesn't matter. She's going to be yours, and the riches of the world are going to be yours, and everything is going to be great. When you lose weight, the world is going to be your little oyster. No, it's not. Losing weight doesn't change the world around you. And this is one of the reasons that people keep relapsing, because we lose the weight and we find out what a lie this is. It's a lie. The food is a lie. And the lie is a lie. There are two things that changed when I lost weight. I weighed less and I looked different. I felt better, so that would be 3. I felt better. But that's all that changed. That's all that changed. Nothing else changes. So you get this idea because you're told it all the time. My parents told this to me, and the parents of my friends told this to me. Harlan, just lose weight and everything will be fantastic. Well, I lost weight a lot of times, and the truth is, yes, I looked different, better. I weighed less, yes. I was in less physical pain, but boy, was I in mental pain because I didn't have relief from the untenable pain of not eating. And so that's all that changed. And when you get lied to, you get angry if you're anything like me. I don't like being lied to. I don't like being lied to. I have a friend of mine, he's dead now. He used to lie to me all the time. I hated it. So we have a situation where we are told this and we want to believe it so desperately. We want to believe it so desperately that we do believe it. And then we lose the weight and nothing changes. Okay. Is it not evident to all the rest of the players that these are the things he wants? See, people see right through us. People see right through us. And do not his actions make each of them wish to retaliate, snatching all they can get out of the show? Is he not even in his best moments a producer of confusion rather than harmony? That's me. Just let me lead the band and there'll be no music. It'll just be noise. Let God lead the band and the most beautiful symphony, the most beautiful music that anyone ever heard will be yours to listen to for free. Let God have the final word and all will be well, and that's no lie. That one who has all power, may you find him now. But when I'm running the show and I can't let go of, I think you should be wearing a blue shirt and you want to wear a red shirt, and I just can't let it go, it's going to create friction for you and me and us. And eventually what's going to happen is I'm going to eat because of the anger and the fear that if you love me the way you said you did, you'd do what I want you to do and wear the red shirt. You would do what I wanted you to do. And this is the source of much pain. And what does pain produce? It either produces progress in my recovery or it produces more eating. because I'm going to deal with that pain or it's going to deal with me. And the way I dealt with pain my whole life was to eat, because that's the only thing that put out the fire. Now that I have a program, now that I have a step 10, now that I have a step 11 and a 12 and a 2 and a 1, now that I am a sponsor, now that I am in recovery, I don't have to deal with food by going to the store and scaring the crap out of every Chips Ahoy on the shelf, knowing that its life expectancy has dwindled to minutes. I don't have to get angry. There is a God, and it's not me. If you're not following my script, I can love you and bless you. And there's another thing that needs mentioning before we move on to the next paragraph. I don't have to burn the village. Some of you have been there on one side or the other or both. Okay, you're not going to stick to my script? Then screw you and your ancestors. I'm going to do everything I can do to hurt you and to lash back at you. And I'm going to tell people what a putz you are. I'm going to burn the village. I don't have to do that today. I don't have to burn the village. And whose village gets burned? Mine. Because I'm face down in pizza. I'm face down in Oreo cookies. Not you, me. So I can let you go. I don't need the script. I don't need the writers. I don't need the editors. I don't need the script supervisor. All I need to do today is be a friend to my friends. I can be a girlfriend to my girlfriend. I can be faithful to God. And beyond that, let it go. Let it freaking go. Because the more I put my hands on things, the worse they get. Every time I act in a way that is controlling, manipulating, I am getting closer to a pizza and further away from God. Let's go to the bottom of 61. Our actor is self-centered, egocentric, as people like to call it nowadays. We all have an ego. Thank God we do, or the human race, and we wouldn't have survived. But to what extent do we let it control us? To what extent do we let this ego make rancid our lives and the lives of those around us? It is a evil and corroding thread like fear is ego. Chuck Chamberlain said, there's only one character defect. We have 5 listed in the big book. Not long ago, a woman said to me, oh, this is a couple of weeks ago, maybe a month or two. She says, I have 110 character defects. I said, no, you don't. You have 5 character defects. The rest of them are behaviors that stem from character defects. The 5 character defects are selfish, self-seeking, dishonesty, resentment, and fear. Selfish, self-seeking, dishonesty, resentment, and fear. There are no other character defects. Yelling at your husband is not a character defect. It is a behavior that comes and emanates from a character defect. Being late for work every day is not a character defect. It is a behavior that emanates from the character defect. Do you understand the difference? You have 5 character defects: selfish, self-seeking, dishonest, resentment, and fear. That's it. You don't get 100 of them, you get 5. And Chuck Chamberlain said there's really only one character defect. And the only character defect is conscious separation from God. And all other character defects stem from conscious separation from God. All others. And Chuck Chamberlain said there's only one solution, and that is conscious contact with God. Our actor is self-centered, egocentric, as people like to call it nowadays. He is like the retired businessman who lolls in the Florida sunshine in the winter, complaining of the sad state of the nation. The minister who sighs over the sins of the 20th century. Politicians and reformers who are sure all would be utopia if the rest of the world would only behave. The outlaw safecracker who thinks society has wronged him, and the alcoholic who has lost all and is locked up. Whatever our protestations, are not most of us concerned with ourselves, our resentments, or our self-pity. So what we're talking about here is the manifestation of ego that tells us a lie. And the lie that ego tells us is anybody who disagrees with me is an idiot. There are lots of people who disagree with me that are far from idiots. Matter of fact, they're smarter and more educated than I. As a matter of fact, they are more accomplished at certain things than I. That doesn't mean that my opinion and my thoughts don't count. That means that there is room in the world for them and for me. That's what it means. Not everybody has to be like me. Now, my ego says, well, I need to be the king of the world, King Baby, King Harlan, and everybody has to do what I want them to do. What kind of world would that be? A lousy, stinking world. A lousy world. It would be horrible, horrible. Let's continue. Now we're going to go, we're on page 62. Selfishness, self-centeredness. Notice that there's an exclamation point there. Must be pretty important. Selfishness, self-centeredness, that we think is the root of our troubles. Let's stop right there. Selfishness, self-centeredness. That I am the be-all and the end-all of the world is a thought which will drive the stock of the Mars Chocolate Company and the Hershey Chocolate Company up. Sales will increase in the desert Southwest. Sales will sharply increase around the Safeway at Scottsdale and Shea in Scottsdale, Arizona. They will get a commendation. The store manager will get a commendation for the amount of Halloween candy that they sold over the coming season. I was at the store the other day. I think it was not yesterday, but maybe the day before. And already they're showing Halloween on the candy. It's August, for crying out loud. It's August 17th. You've got a long way to go to get to Halloween. What the heck? But there's really, they want to get it out there as quick as they can. But the Safeway at Scottsdale and Shea would get a commendation for their store at the amount of candy and cookies and cake that they were selling, and it would be up to me to keep those sales healthy. Thank God, I have a credit card. So that would be a good thing. So I could go in there and buy up all the candy and the cake. But you get the picture. Selfishness, self-centeredness, that we think is the root of our troubles. When I begin to have a healthy respect for God, I see that God has many flowers in his garden, and that not every flower is me. You are some of his flowers too. And what you think and what you believe and how you live and where you live and what you think and say are just as valid as me. We may have a disagreement. I may be right about a certain material fact. I could be wrong about a certain material fact. But we are all equal in God's eyes. Let's continue. That we think is the root of our troubles, driven by 100 forms of fear. Fear of what? Fear of if you only liked me enough, you'd stick to my script. Self-delusion. What is that self-delusion? It is the delusion that if you just listen to me, everything will be okay. And that's a bunch of garbage. It's garbage. And self-pity, self-explanatory there. We step on the toes of our fellows and they retaliate. Sometimes they hurt us seemingly without provocation. Seemingly is the key word there. I have provoked them plenty by trying to get them to stick to my script. I have provoked them. But I don't see that because the road to hell is paved with good intentions. And I have such good intentions. If you'll just do what I want you to do, everything is going to be okay. Well, you know what? No, it's not. But I'm telling you, I know the answer. No, you don't. So they strike back. But we invariably find that at some time in the past, we have made decisions based on self, which later placed us in a position to be hurt. Self-explanatory. We did what we needed to do for ourselves, and so we hurt other people, and they struck back at us. They struck back at us. I used to have a German Shepherd, and his name was George Halas. We called him Hal or Hallie. George Halas was the founder of the National Football League. He was the owner of the Bears, and I named my dog after him. And then we got another German Shepherd named Emma. And Emma was a fifth of his size, because Halas was fully grown and Emma was a puppy. And he used to run her off and eat her food. We had a dog door that they could go in and out of. And we had a huge backyard. This is when I was married. And one day it was in the kitchen and we all saw it. One day Emma got tired of being bullied by Halas. Halas used to bully the hell out of her. He would bite her and he would run her off and play with her toys and eat her food and drink her water. And one day, she was a fifth of his size. She had it. She bit him right on the neck. She went after him and bit him as hard as she could. You know what? He left her alone after that. She fought back. She fought back, even though she knew she might get killed, but she fought back and she bit him on the, I could see it now. I was there, I saw it. She bit him and she tore into him as best as she could. He never ran her off like that again, ever. He never tormented her again. They were the best of friends. They were the best of friends. We're in the middle of 62. So our troubles, we think, are basically of our own making. They arise out of ourselves. And the alcoholic is an extreme example of self-will run riot, though he usually doesn't think so. See, I don't always know that I'm being a jerk and I'm trying to manipulate you. I don't always know. And sometimes the world gives me a signal when somebody pushes back on me that I said to myself, you've gone too far. You've gone too far. Above everything else, we alcoholics must be rid of this selfishness. Selfishness meaning the script. We must, or it kills us. God makes that possible. Can I do that on my own? Can I get rid of selfishness on my own? Can I get rid of self-seeking on my own? Can I get rid of the delusion that I can wrest satisfaction out of this world if I only manage well on my own? And the answer is no more could this be done than a goldfish play an accordion. It cannot be done. I have an illness that only a spiritual awakening will conquer. I am not capable of having anything good in my life on my own. I am self-destructive. I am a self-saboteur. I am not always in touch with reality. I am egocentric. I am whatever I am. I'm good things too. I have character assets too. I'm a good person. I'm good at certain things. Certain things I'm not good at. I'm good at being a friend. I have many friends that I've had for 50, 60 years, 70 years. So I must be good at that. I must be decent at that. I've had a lot of friends that I've had, since the early 60s, 1959, when we started kindergarten. We're still friendly. So I must be good at something. I make a living, my bills are paid, so I must be good at something. But I have a lot of character defects, and I have a lot of work that needs to be done. A lot of work that needs to be done. I hope that I will live long enough to do most or all of the work, because I would sure love to be what God intended me to be. And the only way I will be what God intended me to do will be to follow the dictates of a higher power. I want to be exactly who God wants me to be. I don't want what I want. I want what God wants. I want what God wants, because what God wants is the best of all things to aspire to. I can't see the future. I'll tell you a little story. In 2010, 14 years ago, at this time of year, on the 13th of August, which was just 4 days ago, I left my home with my child and my wife for the last time. I never lived with them again. My wife divorced me. I didn't want the divorce. I fought the divorce as best I could. And then you can't be married to somebody that doesn't want to be married to you. I didn't want this divorce. I thought it was the worst thing. I thought I'm going to be alone the rest of my life. And for several years, I was alone. For several years, I lived a life of solitude and celibacy, and it sucked. It sucked. And one day in July of 2022, I met my current girlfriend, and I wouldn't trade her for Babe Ruth in his prime. She's great. And, I couldn't see the future. I just couldn't see the future. And I'm a very lucky person to be with her. She's wonderful. She's beautiful. She's great. And if somebody could have told me that then, it would have saved me a lot of heartache. But I had to go through what I had to go through to get to where I am today. So this was something that was very important to me, is to know that God's got it. God's got my back. I don't have to manipulate. I don't have to do those things. God's got it. When God has the pen, every story will have a happy ending. We just have to give him enough of a chance. It may seem bleak now. You may not be getting what you want now. I didn't want that divorce. Are you kidding me? No way. Hey, I'm okay now. I'm okay. It's just God has to have the final word. Let's go back to page 62. And there often seems no way of entirely getting rid of self without his aid. I must be rid of self as best I can. Will there be vestiges of self? Yes, because the ego resurrects itself beautifully. If every organ and tissue in my body resurrected itself as beautifully as the ego, I would live to be 20,000 years old. Nothing, no disease could hurt me. Nothing could hurt me. But it just doesn't work that way. It's too bad, but it just doesn't work that way. The ego resurrects itself just gorgeously. Many of us had moral meaning truthful, not moral like I'm holding you up to a standard, moral and philosophical convictions galore, but we could not live up to them, even though we would have liked to. So again, a lot of our intentions are good, but sometimes it gets away from us. Neither could we reduce our self-centeredness much by wishing or trying on our own power. We had to have God's help. How do I get God's help? Work the steps, help others. Work the steps. If you're confused about this, if this is confusing for you, work the steps. It's all there. You don't have to have any other books. You don't have to have any other philosophies. You don't have to have any other anything. Just do what's in front of you. Now, this is the how and the why of it. I'm on the bottom of 62. This is the how and the why of it. I can't wait for this paragraph. We're writing a book, and the book is an interpretation of the big book for the compulsive overeater with my experiences in it and so on. But this paragraph is a particular favorite of mine, as is the next paragraph. This is the how and the why of it. First of all, we had to quit playing God. It didn't work. There's the understatement of the year, is that playing God doesn't work. Playing God doesn't work. I don't know how to say it other than that. It just doesn't work. I have to do God's job, not God's work. God's work is for me to work the steps or whatever, but God is God. I am not. You know, the funny thing about God, he doesn't come down to earth and masquerade as Harlan, but I try to masquerade as God. Isn't that weird that he doesn't walk around saying, hey, I'm Harlan, do what I want you to do. He doesn't do that. Do God's work. Don't do God's job. It didn't work. Next, first of all, we had to quit playing God. It didn't work. Next, we decided that hereafter in this drama of life, God was going to be our director. Go to a movie set, go to a play. The director is the one that says, you're going to be sad, you're going to be happy, you're going to be in love, you're going to be in mourning, whatever that may be. God is the director, and he assigns the parts. He is the principal, and we are his agents. Now, that's a business reference that a lot of people in OA don't get. I have a real estate license in the state of Arizona. I don't sell real estate, but I have a license. And for a long time, I worked with a business broker. I've since stopped doing that, but I used to. One of the things that is required in the state of Arizona, it's required in all 50 states, is for anybody with such a license to be a fiduciary to the principal. What does that mean? To act in the interest of the person that you're representing over and above your own needs. They are the principal and I am the agent. The agent means I represent God and do his work, but I am not the principal. I hope that makes sense. I hope I've explained it correctly. God is the principal. I am his agent. I am not here to be the principal. I am here to be the agent. He is the father and we are his children. Now, some of you had fathers that might have been yutzes. I don't know. Some of you had fathers that might have been yutzes. I have no idea. My dad was a good guy. He did the best he could, but he was too old to really be a dad. He was 60 by the time I entered kindergarten, first grade. So he couldn't do the things with me that most fathers do with their sons. And that whatever it is what it is. You've been dead a long time. But I'm talking about the perfect father. Maybe you have issues with your dad. A lot of people do. Maybe you have issues with your dad. This is the perfect father. This is your father who is in heaven. Okay? We are his children. That means he's going to protect us because he's a perfect father. He's going to see to it that you get what you need. Most good ideas are simple, and this concept was the keystone of the new and triumphant arch through which we pass to freedom. That's another construction metaphor by Bill. Bill loved construction metaphors. Now, before we go to next week, we're going to do the top of 63, which is the third step promises. We're going to start there next week. I want to re-encapsulate what we've done. Re-encapsulate, is that a word? I don't think so. I'm going to recap what we've been done. What we've been done? No, I think I'm too tired. What we have done. That's a little better. I think I'm going to recap what we have done. I used to speak English when this began about an hour ago. Now I don't anymore. I don't know what happened to me in the hour, but that's okay. All right. So we have this script in our head. That's selfishness. And then self-seeking is the manipulative action we take to get people to stick to our script. That's self-seeking. Okay. Now we have this idea that we have the answers. We have this idea that, yes, if you'll just do what I want you to do, then everything will be okay. And the truth of the matter is, that's not true. We are just people, and we have a very small view of what's going on. Okay. I love going to, I'm coming to Chicago for Labor Day. I'm going to be in Chicago around the very end of August or the beginning of September. I'm coming to Chicago. And one of the things we like to do is we like to go to Lake Michigan, and it's free. There's benches there. We sit there and we look at the lake, and I get very awestruck by Lake Michigan. Lake Michigan, for those who don't know, is one of the Great Lakes. It's humongous. You cannot see across it. It's very, very big. It's an inland sea, really. And it is just fabulous. And you think you can see so much of the lake because your human eye, you're going out there, but the curvature of the earth is such that you can't see beyond the curvature of the earth. You just can't. It's impossible. So I liken program and God to Lake Michigan. We sit there and we look at the lake, and there's birds and there's kids and there's dogs and, walking around and people. And it's a whole show over there. We really enjoy it. So anyway, you think you see this, but you're not seeing much of it. You're seeing a very small percentage of the total picture, because the lake goes from northern Wisconsin to Illinois, from Illinois to Indiana, from Indiana to Michigan and up. It's huge. It's huge. So you think you're seeing a lot of the lake. You're not. You're not. Such is life. I see a small picture, a small little picture of what I think is life. God sees the macro. He sees everything. He knows things I can't know because I can't see around a corner. I can't see around the curvature of the earth. But he can. He can. So we have a situation where it appears that we know something, but we really don't. And oftentimes I ignore that and I go in and think, I know what's best. I have a friend of mine that lives in the Bay Area of California. If he would just listen to me, he would be so much better off. And you know what? He doesn't. He doesn't listen to me. You know what? I got to leave him alone and let him be. I don't want to let him alone and let him be because I have this delusion, this illusion that I'm right and he's wrong. Well, he's got his life, and his life doesn't include much of my script. It just doesn't. So that's the name of that tune. Okay. I'm going to give this back to somebody. I think it was Audrey. I'm going to give it back to Audrey. But before I do, wait just a minute here. Before I do, next weekend, we're going to go to the third step promises and the third step prayer. And you're going to notice there's no written assignments. There's no workbook assignments. There's no writing in step 3. There's no big, elaborate amount of any copious work that needs to be done. You're going to find out, if you haven't discovered this already, that step 3 should take about 30 seconds. And if it takes any longer than about 30 seconds, you're probably doing it incorrectly. So we're going to blow the lid off this joint next Saturday. So come back next Saturday. Audrey, let's do questions and answers. No math, No math and no food questions. No math, no food. And if you asked a question last week, hang back. You can ask it. Hang back until it sort of simmers down, slows down, and then you can ask your question. Okay? Audrey, it's all yours.
Thanks, Harlan. I'm just going to stop there.